Ladies and gentlemen, you're back with Marion County Hardball and Shari Lydy. Remind everyone again, please go to the top of the Facebook page and make a donation at my coffee. These donations go to Marion County Messenger. Rurik is an unpaid commentator. He enjoys doing this. And with that, oh yeah, I forgot a while ago, I want to go ahead and make sure that I get this out here. Any candidate that would like to come on an interview, regardless of party affiliation, please contact us and you can come on an interview. And with that, I'm going to kick it off to Shari Lydy and to Rurik.
Well, Shari, you've got some great information. This is I guess it's kind of political, but it's...
One more thing that we need to mention, I believe I have the comments turned off. If you have a question you'd like to post, a serious question, please email MarionCountyMessenger@gmail.com. Now, Rurik,
Thank you. Shari Lydy is bringing us really some information. And so this is Shari's not running for a political office. So, Shari, with that, why don't you go ahead and tell the public what you would like to discuss.
Okay. First of all, thank you both, Duke and Rurik, for inviting me on Hardball. So, like you said, I'm Shari Lydy. I live about 15 miles north of South Pittsburgh off of Highway 156, kind of in the northwest corner of Marion County. And so I retired 6 years ago and built a house up here. And I was coming here for a long time. I've been caving here since 1984, so I knew a lot of people. I loved the area, things like that. So I'm a concerned citizen. Well, I'm a citizen who's very concerned about all the proliferation of like mountaintop communities and particularly extractive rock industries around the unincorporated areas in Marion County. And so, up by me, there's a proposed quarry, sand quarry, that's going to go into 150 acres of pristine farmland. And, we've stopped that for the stop jump off community. We've stopped that for 2.5 years just by contesting, the permits from TDEC. Mm-hmm. There's the development going across the limestone quarry that's across from the Marion County Park down on, Nickajack. Everybody can see that thing is eating the whole side of the mountainway. There's going to be another quarry on the backside of Etna Mountain, which you can see from I-24. It's not operating yet, but they're getting ready to do that. Then you've got about 22 river rock extracting facilities or companies around the county. It's been increasing. You're taking river rock out of the creek beds and then farmlands, and it's very destructive. And then you can't really use the property afterwards, and the creek beds are destroyed. You've got, now I'll talk about the mountaintop communities. Jasper Highlands was here before I moved up here. And I'm not against the communities. It's just that now you've got all these houses lining the ridgetop. It's kind of unsightly. It kind of ruins the ambiance of the area. And then we've got another big development that's going in right now on top of Etna Mountain, and that's going to be another supposed to be 2,000 to 3,000 houses, but I think they've cut it down because of problems with the plats. You've got the proposed Happy Hollow Vista development, which could go on top, over the top of or above South Pittsburgh and the Tennessee River. You've got the mega truck stop that's still, it's been litigated for close to 5 years now. This is off of exit 135. If you go up I-24, it's in Monteagle. So there's questions I think we need to ask about these developments. Are they compatible with the health, safety, well-being, and economic or the quality of life and economic well-being of residents? Is this development, are these developments balanced with the environment and the natural beauty of the area? We have a lot of tourists that come up here. It brings in, like the whole state of Tennessee, $1.9 billion with just the state parks alone. Are the existing needs of residents for infrastructure like water, sewer, and roads being met before the needs of the developers. I think that's in question. So, how do we really deal with development? The question comes up, but nobody really has an answer. And there are some potential answers. One thing I'm going to talk about is the County Powers Act, which is a lightning rod for misinformation and just, people are, just against it. And I think the problem started, well, at least for me, I got involved with the County Powers Act back in November of 2023 when we brought it up to the Marion County Commission and asked for a vote because we were trying to stop the jump off quarry through legislative means. And the CPA was defeated 8-6 at that time. But we asked a lot of questions about it. So what is the County Powers Act? Well, it was enacted by the Tennessee legislature in 2002, and it was designed to give counties the same power that municipalities have, which is to regulate certain activities, that may be detrimental to the health of people and our well-being and stuff. And so, the powers are like, you can define, you can prohibit, regulate, a specific act and define specific activities that could be detrimental. Some of those activities are anything that would affect the health, well-being, convenience, morals of the public health. So then it comes down to, now we're going to talk about what the County Powers Act is. There's two ways that it can be adopted, or there's two steps to adopting it. First, you have to adopt the County Powers Resolution, or County Powers Act resolution, which requires a 2/3 vote of the County Commission. The second step is you have to define and regulate the specific activity, and that takes a second 2/3 majority vote of the County Commission. Okay, the County Powers Act is not forever. You can revoke it very easily, which you can't do with zoning. Once you have zoning, it's there, I think, forever. So anyway, you can undo, first you would undo, you could revoke the specific activity that was regulated. That would be the first step. And it takes a 2/3 vote, majority vote of the commission. Then you could actually go so far as to revoke the whole resolution by another 2/3 majority vote. Okay, so, okay, question.
So if the County Powers Act were enacted, and let's say, would the county sit down and say, we're not going to allow the development of more sand quarries in Marion County? Would it be that specific when it was enacted, or would that be on an as needed case-by-case basis?
The way you have to do it, no, it's for the county, but in Grundy County, you can see how they did this. They enacted it was in 2020, they enacted the CPA. Mm-hmm. So at that time, first they enacted the resolution, and then they defined the specific activity. And it's not like zoning. The CPA is not zoning. What they said was, you cannot have a quarry within 5,000 feet of a church, of a school, of a house, and there was some other stuff in there. So anyway, that was the definition. So you define a specific activity, but then it applies to the whole county. Okay, did that answer?
That answered my question. That's exactly what I needed.
But we know that Grundy County, they failed. As far as the Supreme Court.
Well, the Supreme Court right now, but Grundy's got another plan. I got a text from somebody else who had talked to Mayor Brady. So they're working on a plan to, appeal this, because I think that the Supreme Court justices did not really understand what the CPA is. What they said was that it was zoning, and it is not zoning. But there are very subtle differences between the CPA and zoning. And I'm going to get into that too in a minute. So anyway, there's this thing in Tennessee regulations. It's called the Tennessee County Property Regulations. And what that does, this is the way, municipalities operate. But now counties can also do it, because counties also have that ability. So it concerns land use, which is a typical, how are you going to use your land, types of buildings, things like that, density, So it's a land use thing. Then you can have, it talks about subdivisions, all the rules for laying out plats, getting water in, stuff like that. And then you have, they handle property appraisals or property taxes. And then you have, like, you can appeal property taxes. And then there's like special, which is, that deals with, like the Green Belt program with water flood zones, and then also with trees. So to get into, now I'm going to talk about specific differences between that county property regulations and the County Powers Act. The first thing, and I'm going to have to need my notes because some of this was technical, but the target areas, like standard zoning, can be used in unincorporated areas of the county, but it's not done that way. Usually, right now zoning is applied to communities and cities, there. Because I think there would be World War III if it was applied out in the rural areas. There would be an uprising.
Are you saying like spot zoning? Is that what you're...
Well, when you have zoning, it would have to be, well, how would they work that? I think it would be spot zoning. I think it could be spot zoning, but it's not clear to me from the regulations. I mean, the way the law is written, and I'm not a lawyer. I went through trying to figure out the legalese on this stuff, not having AI telling me its interpretation. So anyway, then like the CPA, the CPA applies specifically only to unincorporated areas of the county. And then there's this thing of prohibition versus regulation. So with zoning, you have the authority to both regulate and prohibit a specific activity or business in certain areas. And what that means is, for an example, you couldn't put a factory in the middle of a residential area. Now the CPA operates differently. It allows you to have regulation of the usage, but you can't ban the usage. And what that means is, we'll look at like Grundy County, how they did this. So the usage is that you cannot have a sand quarry, say a quarry within 5,000 feet of a house, okay? But the thing is, it doesn't ban it throughout the county, that you can't have quarries throughout the county. It just have to meet, you can't have a quarry if it meets that criteria. If it was 5,001 feet away, you can have a quarry anywhere in the county you want to have it. So that's a big difference. And then adoption requirements. Zoning depends on state statutes, okay? The CPA, you must adopt it with the 2/3 vote of the county commission, okay? And then agricultural protections, and this is really important because there was major misinformation spread in the county to farmers in 2023. With zoning, you could zone an area agricultural, but you could still prohibit a certain agricultural activity on there. Like you could say, we don't want to have industrial pig farm or chicken farm, like a big complex. Whereas the CPA explicitly states it has absolutely no effect on normal agricultural activities. That is huge.
So let me ask you this. If I wanted to go out here and raise the world's most expensive eggs, which they would be if I raised chickens.
Yeah.
I'm not really a farmer. I'm just growing a few chickens. So would it impact me if I'm out in the country? Now I know it does if I'm in the city, but if I'm out in the county, it wouldn't impact me.
I don't think so, because there's a whole list when you go and look at the CPA statute.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the way it's written, it's got a whole list of agricultural stuff in there, and it doesn't specifically say that because things aren't zoned. Well, I guess they are. It's not zoned. They're called, in property taxes, woodland, farm, whatever. But that's not zoning. So I'm not sure we would need a lawyer, somebody like, Billy Gouger, somebody to interpret that.
Okay.
Or some other lawyer. I'm just not sure about that.
I was under the assumption when I read it that agriculture was exempt.
Everything, anything.
Any type of agriculture.
If I have 2 chickens, that's agriculture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and something I forgot to mention about what the CPA does and does not do. Again, this was like agricultural activities are exempted totally. Existing businesses are grandfathered in. If you have an activity, if there's a law that is already on the books, a state or federal or county law, and that would override, anything with the CPA. And then also, if a regulation was so burdensome that a property owner could not use their property the way they wanted to, or get value from it, or enjoy it, then a court could strike down that regulation, or what it would say was they would strike down the regulation and just say that was because the property owner, suppose the regulation is taking the value away from the property owner with no compensation. So that's just like kind of an add-on there. But so in here, I guess that's okay. The other thing is, what's the differences between, this is getting down kind of in the weeds, but it's more simple to what applies to us. What's the difference between the County Powers Act, zoning, and a nuisance? So I said, like zoning, that's regulation of the land use, building types, and density, but it's based on, it's via a map or a district. So, you've got a boundary. And then the County Power Act, you've got broader powers, but you're regulating nuisances, business activities, and conduct for public safety. But there's no boundaries with it, no, bounded in area. It's you're regulating the activity. And then a lawsuit is required to handle a nuisance. And that's a whole nother other can of worms. The county can file a lawsuit, the city can file lawsuits, the county can, but private individuals can too. So now I'm going to get into the Jackson Law. That was enacted by the legislature in 1989. And what it says, what it gave local governments, and this is both counties and cities, the authority to approve or reject new landfills or expansions. And this was within their districts or their city area, I guess, or within 1 mile of their boundaries. And what the Jackson Law says, it can be adopted by a county or a city with a vote of, it's a 2/3 vote of the legislative body. And they don't define, that. So it can be, your commission or whatever. And so there's stipulations for the landfill. It has to be operated, or the landfill generator, the waste generated must be handled by the owner, of the company, and then any of the waste coming in must be generated in that county. And see, what the Jackson Law tells counties is that they can regulate any expansion or new landfill, in their county or city. And why this is important is Murfreesboro, right now, they've had a massive landfill there for years and years and years, but it served Murfreesboro. So now they've invoked the Jackson Law because the operator of the landfill wants to bring in waste from all over the southeast and make this thing like a huge landfill. And this is close to residences and stuff.
It's
and
here.
Yeah, it's here. It's stinky. There's noise. There's leakage. People are just raising Cain about it. And so now I'm going to get into this. There's some legislation pending. Well, it's not pending. It's going through the House and the Senate in Tennessee right now. It's House Bill 1827 and Senate Bill 2053. And so this was Hicks in the House and Yeager in the Senate who were introducing this, and it was introduced in January of this year. So it applies only to county government. And this may be a workaround for the CPA. Maybe this is fortuitous. But as introduced, it requires a local legislative body to approve the location of any quarry or digital data mining, like cryptocurrency. It's not going to be as big as AIs. It's not, because those are much, much bigger. But anyway, that the location would have to be approved by a vote, legislative, or a public meeting, public meeting in that county. But they don't define, there's a lot of things they don't define in this bill. It's only like a page and a third. So there's a lot of holes. And I guess right now they're in committee, it's in committee in both the House and Senate. And it's already calendared in the Senate. So it's moving forward.
They'll write it up in committee.
And they have a lot of support for this, big support. Apparently going forward. And they're really surprised. I'm really surprised because the rock people, the big industries, the big players in the state of Tennessee, they've been quiet about this. So it's like, what's going on? But to me, this could be like spot zoning. I think that's the way it might work. So my next big question is, like, how do residents in Marion County really feel about the developments going on? I mean, I know from the comments I'm seeing in different blogs, and you know, particularly to me, it's really important for the unincorporated areas of the county where there is no zoning, because that's where I live. But the big thing is, people want to control their own property. They want somebody to tell them what to do with it. But here's sort of the caveat: if you live in, you know, a community here, a city or town, Jasper, Kimball, or South Pittsburgh, and West New Hope, you have zoning. You have your, you know, there's rules about it. But if you're out in the country, you know, there's absolutely no rules. It's like the wild, wild west. You can do anything. So I think people want to preserve the ambiance and charm of the area where they live, where they play, you know, where they work, and they want to have they want to maintain the quality of their life. We also want to preserve the natural beauty of the area, and then I think that we're really interested in our county government really being responsive to we the people, putting we the people before developers. Okay. Also, I think citizens would like to be involved in the process of developments when they're still in the planning stage, like with the planning commission, and have some say-so. Right now, it's a done deal with developers by the time we hear about it. If you go to the planning commission meetings, you can make a comment, but it's already a done deal, so it's a moot point. I think we need to make sure that we can have our elected officials avoid conflicts of interest, and they should be open about this, whether it's a perceived or a real conflict. I mean, just admit it, you know, just talk about it. And I think we also need to ensure, sorry.
Yeah. It's from Joy. Does your caving experience give you insight into underground world and pollution most of us never experience?
Oh yeah. If you're not, there's a few caves that got polluted around here, but when the Klaus Hill Sand Quarry was in operation, there's several caves that are in line there where Hurricane Creek leaves the quarry area, and it flows through Smith Hollow Cave. The Wintons own that. Wonder Cave. People have heard of Wonder Cave. There's a whole bunch of cave systems where Hurricane Creek flows. There was a dye trace done, and there's water coming in from the places. So there was a direct connection with silt. That was silt coming from the quarry, was flowing in Hurricane Creek, and it was getting in the caves, and that was documented. I mean, I've caved in Kentucky where the caves run into some of these towns, and you have to be careful. I was using carbide lamps, and you could smell the gas, and there was pollution. I mean, you get like Mulu hand from the polluted water, and if you had a cut on your hand, get all, you know, affected. So anyway, yeah, that is a problem. The other thing I think that we want from our elected officials is for developers to follow the subdivision regs and building, water, sewer, and road regulations. We have to, just hold the developers' toes to the line. I think there's a lot of variances. When I've gone to some of the planning board commission meetings, there's a lot of variances issued, and it's kind of like, well, why did you do that? And then I also think that, I mentioned this before, that the needs of the community need to be balanced, or the developments need to be balanced with the needs of the community and maintaining the quality of life. And so the other thing is, like, I think residents would like to benefit from all the dollars coming into the area, or, to Marion County from these developments. I mean, maybe there can be jobs with higher wages and benefits, because I looked at the stats, government stats, and, most of the jobs are, their poverty level for an individual, and a pay for their poverty level, or even for a family of 4. And so we need better infrastructure with roads, sewer, and water. It could go for better schools. And then particularly now what's happening, and elderly residents and others are getting priced out of their properties that they have lived on for generations because of increasing property taxes. So the challenge to me here is to convince all residents of Marion County that we do have common goals, and we don't need to be divided, have these incompatibilities and open warfare between two groups, like the native borns versus the newcomers, the plateau versus the valley residents, be us versus them. I think that needs to stop. And I realize, there's a culture of small towns, and like you said here, people know everybody, they're related. And so I can see where they think people are coming in, but I've moved here for a very specific purpose because I had caved here for so many years. I loved the area. I really do. I don't want to see things changed or destroyed. When you have people coming into communities, there's going to be, particularly, more liberal states, the attitudes are going to be different. This is a conservative area. I respect that. I'm conservative. But there will be a mesh, and we're going to have to learn how to all work together here. And I think a lot of people who are moving from some of the other areas, they really do like it here. So it's just not, it's like everywhere. You're going to have some people who don't like things or are going to complain. There's people who live here who don't like things and complain, okay? So why do we need the CPA? Well, without the County Powers Act, there is no way in the unincorporated areas with no zoning to regulate specific activities or businesses. And to me, quarries can come in. You could have more quarries. You can have hazardous waste dumps. You could have gambling coming in. You could have, prostitution, biosolid processing plants, which another county stopped that. Grundy stopped that, not with the County Powers Act, but by a public outcry. Mega truck stops. So, in my opinion, countywide zoning would never be passed in Marion County. And like I said, there would be a revolution. And I don't know if I'm for that, but I would like to see if there is a process for like spot zoning. Because now with the CPA, the Supreme Court ruling, the CPA is probably toast in Tennessee. I don't know what the legislature is going to do because the Supreme Court justices said that the CPA, the County Powers Act, is zoning, and it is not. But now zoning is tagged with that. So it's, how are they going to work with it? Nuisance laws pit landowners against well-heeled developers. And so who wins there. The Jackson Law and I think the County Powers Law Act are the only remaining ways to protect the people in the unincorporated areas. People who live in the towns here, they have zoning which can protect their property and their value. If you're in an unincorporated area of Marion County, we do not have that same protection. Without that, it's a double standard, and that's not right. And the other thing is, there's this attitude of not in my backyard. So people say they don't care. If it's not in their backyard, they don't care about it. I had a commissioner who happened to be chair of the commission at the time back in 2023 when I went up to the die and talked to her. Well, there was a quarry above our homestead, and we've suffered, and we had to put up with noise and everything, so, not my problem, not her problem. And anyway, it left me speechless, because I said, I don't understand that attitude. Why would you want people to have to suffer the same things that you did? And it wasn't right, but it's not fair, and it's still not right. So, that's all I have to say, and if you want to, I have information, all the documents to back up what I've been saying, references. So anything that you would like me to send you, just put a request in through Marion County Messengers, to the Gmail page.
Yes, Marion, you can either send me a message on Messenger or send it to my Gmail page, MarionCountyMessenger@gmail.com.
And I will be happy to send you, any of this, these documents or anything like that. So, thank you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate the great information.
Did I help?
Okay. And folks, are we interviewing more people?
We got one more set.
Yeah, sorry.
We got one more set of interview to go through. I believe it's going to be Michael Scott Burnett and Tony, are you coming up?
Well, I'm here to support him, but I might say one quick thing.
Okay, great.
So we're going to take a quick break, and please hang out with us, and we'll be back in about 5 minutes.